We'll begin our question and answer period with the first question, which according to Rule 35A is, will you suspend your campaign if someone other than you is endorsed by this convention? A yes or no answer only, and we'll start with Soren Stevenson.
Yes.
Considering I'm the only true DFL candidate,
That was a no. All right, our next question, and we'll start with Josh Massey for this one, is going to be, if you wouldn't mind holding the microphone, it kind of bounces when you're sitting on the table. Thank you. Would you vote to renew Police Chief Brian O'Hara's contract? Why or why not?
I would vote to renew his contract. I think his background, coming from New Jersey in a consent decree, where he had his former position, really provides really great insight on how we move forward. And by no means is a consent decree a solve, but it's a good baseline, the two consent decrees, and I think we're working towards the right direction, and I think he's been very upfront with the community.
I would have some serious questions for him about what happened with Davis Maturi. And then I have serious questions about his boss, the mayor. He is working at the discretion of the mayor, and everything comes back to the mayor in terms of what's happening with the police department. So I'm open to it, and I'm also open to finding somebody else if he's not willing to do the job.
All right, thank you. Our next question, and we'll start with Soren Stevenson, is going to be, what is your specific vision for George Floyd Square?
Yeah, my vision for George Floyd Square is a square that is both a thriving neighborhood node and an international landmark that respects the legacy of the murder of George Floyd and the movement that went global outside of it. So that means the People's Way property being developed into the plans that the city is putting forward right now. That means businesses that are thriving, getting black-owned businesses in there, having the city take an active role in filling those businesses and filling vacant lots. It means champion immediate improvements in lighting, in the sidewalks, in curb cuts, things that we don't have to wait years and years to do. We can do those things right away.
So I guess I'll actually answer the question. I believe in opening up George Floyd Square, opening up the street, and I say that because the people who live around George Floyd Square, the property owners, the business owners, have unanimously requested that be the situation. And also, until we decide on what is done with the street, whether it be pedestrian mall or open street, open flex plan, nothing will be invested in George Floyd Square for now 5 years. It'll be 6 years, and there it goes. So I believe in the will of the people, in what the people want. The people want a thriving George Floyd Square that shows resilience, and that most importantly, fully, truly honors the man who was murdered on that corner, and we're not doing that currently.
Thank you. Our next question, and we'll begin with Josh Massey, is, do you have plans or thoughts regarding the 2020 referendum on city rent control?
So I do, and over the last few weeks to a month, I've actually talked to a lot of renters and really have gotten a greater insight on kind of the challenges that they have. But I also look to our neighbors across the river in St. Paul. And that, my opponent is absolutely pledged to not consider new development under rent control. And we are seeing what happens when you do not consider new development and rent control. So if we do not develop new housing, that is a major, major blow to solving our housing crisis here in the city, and I'm very concerned about that.
As As a renter myself, I understand what it feels like to come to the end of a lease and not know whether the rent is going up or down. But it never goes down, surprise, surprise. Yeah, so under current law, the landlord can raise the rent by 100%, doubling your rent. I don't think that's right. I just don't think that that's right. Renters need stability in their home. I'm committed to working with you. I'm committed to working with community partners, including the builders of missing middle housing, to make sure that we can craft a rent stabilization policy that works for you, works for homeowners, renters, and people building the homes that we need in this city.
Thank you. This next question will begin with Soren Stevenson. What will you do to bring back businesses and alleviate the issue of high taxation on homeowners?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot that we need to do, and it's going to be even more pressing in the next 4 years as we get no or less funding from the federal government and we get squeezed by the state government as well. So I think something that's really important for the city to do is both not only be judicious with its budget, but also we need to go to the state to request different ways of getting revenue. We must be taxing high-income earners, 200,000 and more earners in this city, in order to find the services that we need. I'm not interested in austerity for austerity's sake. I want to be responsible with the budget, and I want to make sure that everyone is paying their fair share of the city.
So I'm one person on this stage that's actually managed a budget and very significant budgets. And it takes very detailed skill and very particular processes and project plans. And that's something that I think City Hall has been lacking for quite some time. We have to be far more diligent and far more responsible as stewards of taxpayer money when we decide to invest in something. That's the first thing. The second is we need to have livability addressed in the city to build more housing, to increase our tax base. Also, to reimagine downtown. I do not believe we can turn downtown into an all-residential area. We will lose the commercial tax revenue, which will fall on working people and folks with fixed incomes in this community as property tax increases, and that's just flat out wrong.
Thank you. This next question will begin with Josh Bosse. What are your plans to address the climate crisis in Minneapolis?
So I think on the front end, and something that could be in place right away is working on existing homes and energy efficiency with existing homes. My house is 110 years old and by no means is it efficient. And I think that we start there, and it's very much a win-win. First of all, we are cutting our carbon emissions. But we're also helping on folks' utility bills that if you've noticed have gone up increasingly high over the last few months. The other is let's invest in mass transit, moving large amounts of people with either EV buses or my pipe dream, as I talked about, is reinstating streetcars in the city of Minneapolis and having those run on electric and moving groups of folks and getting them to other transit options.
So I've worked directly with groups like Unidos and Faith in Minnesota and others, Sunrise Movement, who are fighting for Twin Cities and a Minneapolis that is responsible in the face of climate change, where we're doing what we need to do to bring carbon emissions down. So I'm committed to working on the Block by Block program, which is going block by block for energy efficiency and electrification, so that everyone can take a part of it, not just the wealthiest among us who can afford to make these switches themselves. We have so much coming before us in the next council session with the comprehensive plan and other actions that the city's going to be taking around the streetscape to plan out a city that has geothermal in the plan, that has transit prioritized, so that we really can be the carbon-free and the livable city that we want.
Before we go on to the next question, I will let you all know that we have about 10 minutes left in the question and answer period. I would like to give us a, say, 12-minute warning to freeze the floor so we can move expeditiously into balloting once the question and answer period ends. At that time, anyone who is not seated with a blue delegate badge or a convention official pass must be behind the floor. The seats are marked where the precinct seating begins, and if you are not a blue badge delegate or convention official, you must be seated behind that area or up in the gallery. The alternative is that if you are a delegate, you are not on the floor and seated in your precinct at the time the floor is frozen, you will not be allowed onto the floor at that time, and you will not be permitted to vote. We need to freeze the floor in order to ensure that only fully voting delegates are participating in the ballot. So once again, if you are a voting delegate, in approximately 10 or 12 minutes, I'll have you be seated forward of and the seats be seated in your precinct. If you are not a voting delegate and only have a floor pass or a guest pass or a non-upgraded alternate, be seated up in the gallery so we can proceed with the votes. Everyone understand? Okay, we'll resume our Q&A. As it pertains to homelessness, what will you do differently than what has been done in the last 7 years? And we'll begin with Soren Stevenson.
Thank you for the question. There is a lot that we need to do differently. We have had a bury our head in the sand approach to homelessness over the last 7 years, and it is not working. We need to prioritize housing first along with the county, but something that we definitely need to do that is in the city's responsibility is identify a place in the city that is acceptable for a temporary place for people to go when they don't have any other place. Our current system of moving people around one block over, it serves nobody. It keeps nobody safe, and it does not move people into permanent housing. We need to be serious about the fact that there are people sleeping on our streets, and they will remain sleeping on our streets until we do something about it. So I'm committed to working with the city, with the county, and with the state to making sure we're getting people off the streets and we're having an orderly transition.
First of all, I would like to personally thank my opponent for the work that he does. The all-important work that he does is monumental. And for someone who has lived close to encampments for the last 4 or 5 years, someone who has had to try to explain to his children why people live like that in our country, the wealth of our country, has become increasingly hard to do, and it's heartbreaking. But I can tell you that what the city has done and has been doing has not been working, and we have definitely not been dedicating the resources to meet people where they are. And that's very important. Wraparound services for individuals who may be experiencing various different things. This is not a one-size-fits-all problem, and we can no longer treat it as such. So again, I will rely on folks like Soren and friends of mine who are at Avivo to provide professional guidance on this and their opinions, because together we can solve this, I'm confident.
Thank you. This next question will begin with Josh Brisset, and as a reminder, about 10 minutes to freezing the floor, 10 minutes until the floor is frozen. This next question, what are either of you going to do about hiring more police officers, given that crime in the 8th Ward has greatly increased since George Floyd was murdered?
So I do believe in a fully staffed police force for many different reasons, but most importantly, to the service of the people of Ward 8. And it is unacceptable that even the most minor of crimes are not responded to within a reasonable amount of time. And it's because our officers are spread too thin and they just do not have the capacity. And I don't want to live in a city where our police officers are working 12, 14-hour days and just simply not being able to function and serve the way that they should. I also believe the trajectory of hiring a police force as diverse as the community that they serve. And I am a firm advocate for community policing, getting cops out of the squad, walking a beat, riding a bike, fully appreciating and making relationships with the folks who they serve.
We need more police officers and we need more public safety workers in this city, period. The city this past year ended the year with more police officers than they did when they started, and that's the first time since the murder of George Floyd. Police officers in Minneapolis are the highest paid in the state and close to the highest paid in the country. And so we need to continue to be hiring more officers. But in the meantime, it takes years to get officers on the force. We need to be working on getting other responses up and running so that officers aren't working those 12-hour days. They're able to respond to the situations where they are needed, and other people who are specialized in domestic violence, in substance abuse, in behavioral crises, they're able to respond to those matters.
Thank you. This next question will begin with Soren Stevenson. What are the top 3 livability issues you would stand by, and how do those pertain to the majority of your constituents? Again, what are the top 3 livability issues you would stand by, and how do those pertain to the majority of your constituents?
Yeah, so the top 3 livability issues for me are dealing effectively and humanely with the homeless crisis on our streets, building a comprehensive public safety system so that you feel safe walking your dog at night and you can expect to feel safe speaking to a Minneapolis police officer. And thirdly, addressing climate change in a way that is responsible. This means dealing with our homes, leaky windows, electrification, but it also means when we do street reconstructions, we're doing things that prioritize all users so that all users can be safe and we can have effective, fast, reliable, clean transit in this city. And these are the things, getting around, feeling safe, and not seeing people sleeping on our streets. These are the things that would greatly improve the way that Minneapolis feels.
So for me, livability is very much kind of an ecosystem holistically. And to me, there's 3 main components and something that I've stood on as pillars of my campaign. First and foremost is public safety, and that folks feel safe in their own communities. They feel safe walking their dogs and being with their kids at the park. And not just about policing, but a focus on prevention. Let's get back to a time where we invest in our youth. Let's get back to a time where we have our youth doing constructive things in the parks and the schools, and focus on them and have some investment in them as well. The other is housing. As I said before, housing is a fundamental right, but I believe we need to build more housing. We need to have more public investment. We need to have more control of what we consider as deeply affordable and get folks into secure housing. And the last of which is economic equity. This city has a very long history of folks of color being very marginalized and very separate from economic equity, and I want to change that.
All right. As a reminder, we have a 5-minute time frame until the floor is frozen. Again, if you are a delegate who is voting, you must be seated on the floor in your precinct in 5 minutes. 5 minutes till the floor is frozen. Please, if anyone, I see a few folks going out to the hallway to let people know, I appreciate that. Anyone who has a floor pass must be off the floor in 5 minutes' time. Okay. Our next question, and we'll begin with Josh Passay. What protections for renters do you support that will ensure all our neighbors have safe and affordable housing?
I am a very big proponent about what we have existing and what's missing, where the gaps are in city policy. And it seems to me that there has been a very deep lack of staff accountability and how we proceed with existing rental protections. The other one is which I fully support a renters union. And folks coming together in solidarity, supporting each other with resources from the city behind them. And I will be an advocate, and I will pound the table for city staff to fully address the concerns when it comes to eviction, any kind of exploitation, and things, and strengthen and bolster the policies that are already in the city of Minneapolis, and we can do that.
Josh, on your We Love Minneapolis questionnaire, you said you supported no more renter protections. I'm curious what's changed with that. One thing is that renters in this state and in this city, they are, there is no minimum requirements about what causes the end of a lease. And so what I support is something called a just cause for eviction. If you want to end somebody's lease and kick them out, there has to be a good reason for it. This is not saying that there are no reasons for lease, that there has to be a baseline of expectations. And if you obey the rules, you pay the rent, everything's going fine, you can stay in the home. That is something that we don't have right now, and is something we desperately need. I'm a renter myself. I work so closely with other renters, and I am committed to seeing a city that prioritizes the 50% of the city that rents.
Thank you. This will be our final question for both candidates. Once again, once we finish this question and answer period, we'll have 2 additional minutes before the floor is frozen. 2 minutes until the floor is frozen once we finish the Q&A period. At this time, our final question will begin with Soren Stevenson. Will you support unionization of any Minneapolis employees currently ununionized?
Absolutely, yes. Unions are the backbone of the working class. They are what brought us an 8-day work day. They brought us so much that we have come to rely on, and I'm absolutely committed to that. I'm committed to making sure that the city is not misclassifying employees so that they're not unionized, or hiring only temporary employees for permanent work. That's something that the city has been doing in the past, and it needs to stop right now. So yes, I will be supporting workers at the city, at the park board, in the schools, and in private industry as well.
I was a union organizer for close to 10 years, so that question is kind of a softball for me. Absolutely, positively, 110%. I will take that a step further. I would organize my colleagues at City Hall to get behind unions, to get behind organizing workers, to get behind workers' rights. And you will see me on a picket line in full support of any union movement. That is one of my core values. As I mentioned, my mom was a 40-plus year union member. I come from a union background, and the union is what built the middle class, and we're going to build it even more because that's what we stand for here in the city of Minneapolis.
All right, thank you to both of our candidates for an excellent Q&A. Let's give a big